The A in USA stands for freedom. That's right, freedom. What exactly is freedom, and how free are we really? How do we stack up against the rest of the world? Get your beers ready and get your guns ready to spread some freedom, and welcome to another episode of the Bermuda Triangle Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Bermuda Triangle Podcast, where interesting topics get lost in good conversation. I'm your host, Alex, and the posse, Adam.
What's going on?
Travis.
Yo.
And Carl.
What's going on?
I got to figure out which order I'm going to introduce you guys in now with all the seats being moved around.
Yeah.
But you can see the studio again, 1 week different, and
Little difference. We're adding some decorations.
we're changing some stuff up.
If you're an interior designer, hit us up.
We did our best.
We won't pay you, but we'll like your thoughts.
We'll pay you with a shout out.
There you go.
That'd be great. Like we mentioned last week, we moved into a new space. We're starting some new live stream. If you are an audio-only listener and you want to check us out in video, you can find us now on YouTube. We have updated a bunch for this live stream video stuff, added some new sounds, some new visuals. Guys, it's going to be a great time in this new space. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's looking better than ever.
Also, don't forget, these live streams start every Monday night at 8:30. And these episodes will go on to your favorite podcast app if you are just an audio listener. On Wednesdays, you can check out that episode on any podcast platform. And if you want those early special moments,
Morning specials,
live moments, join us on Monday night.
Yeah.
And don't forget to join us online, too. And if you get in on the live stream, please comment. Let us know, interact with us. Let us know what you're thinking during the episode, and we'll try and include you.
Well, speaking of good old-fashioned American parties, our friends at Blue Frog Party Club have sponsored this episode. If you're unfamiliar with Blue Frog Party Club, let's talk about how awesome they are, because we not only had the CEO and president of the show of Blue Frog Party Club on the show to talk more about it, but we've seen the boxes that they give, and it's full of just really great stuff. Recipe cards for drinks and food, invitations you can send out. It is your one-stop shop to get all of your party needs. It's a party in a box, really.
It's a lot of fun in a box.
It's really good stuff. So you can actually go over to bluefrogpartyclub.com and use promo code Bermuda, and you get 15% off your first order. So you get a little discount. Let them know that we sent you over there. But yeah, go grab your Blue Frog Party Club party box where the party never stops.
Ooh.
Whoop whoop.
Guys, I think we should take a moment to talk about some of the crazy crap that's going on before we get into
The crazy crap meaning Donald Trump in Syria?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That.
That crazy crap. Yeah.
It's almost as though like we had planned to talk about that. Weird. No, it's pretty crazy what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories already kind of rolling up about whether Assad did it or didn't do it. I mean, I think the fact is that there was a chemical attack. I believe the narrative that Assad did it, although I can understand from a different perspective how there's like no proof or alleged no proof or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, I haven't really looked too deeply into this particular.
I just thought it was weird when I saw Tucker Carlson almost defending the idea of not going and striking that.
Yeah.
It was a really weird thing. He had a little segment on this whole thing, and he was just like, he was calling out Donald Trump and calling our government for striking Syria with, striking their chemical factories. And it was just, because maybe 8 years ago when President Bush was there, it was all about striking Iraq, Afghanistan, just all the precepts strikes. Of war. So
yeah. I'm pretty sure that Assad didn't do it in my mind. I'm not even sure that there was even a chemical attack.
Why do you say this?
Because there's yet to be.
I'm not challenging you. I'm just asking you to expand upon it.
There's yet to be any proof of.
There's been photos that have come out.
There's nothing.
There was a chemical attack. It actually did happen. Now, who did it or who's behind it?
You look
I
at
think
all the
that
evidence
might
on
be
Assad. Like, hey, Assad doesn't seem to have any reason or there's no value in him doing this right now, where he's winning a war. He's got 95% of Syria under control. Shit, a democratically elected. Yes, he is kind of a dictator-ish kind of person.
I wouldn't call him democratically elected.
He was elected. He was
Not
elected.
But not democratically. He was elected by a sham
not at
election.
Okay, so, but you have him in this country where you either have him or ISIS. ISIS will kill you if you disseminate in any of their views, and they'll destroy your cities and rape your women or initiate Sharia law somewhere. And then you have him, which literally just allowed the Christians in the country to celebrate Easter. Like, this guy is not, I mean, yes, he's insane and he's crazy, but I don't think he is stupid. I mean, I think he realizes that he is winning a war. He's got major allies with Russia, and he's got all this support, and he finally gets us to want to back off. All this news coming in America, like, hey, Trump wants to kind of pull everyone out of Syria. This is just a waste of our time, blah, blah, blah. All these talks are happening, and then, boom. All of a sudden, there's a gas attack that requires the UN to get involved. It's not just like he just attacked some people, which he is brutal. Like, if he's got ISIS in a village, he'll kill his own people to wipe the whole village. He is winning this war, like, no matter what cost. But why would he do something like this? Like, this is stupid. It just makes no sense to me.
Well, you did just say he'll win this war at any cost.
Except for getting us back involved in their business. He is trying to do whatever he has no reason to have the whole UN to get involved in.
Well, he's done chemical attacks before, and back when Obama was president, like, he said, okay, this is the red line. If chemical weapons are going to be used, that's the line that America is going to draw, and we're going to step in at that point. But he used chemical weapons, and Obama decided not to follow up on that red line. So then it's like, cool, I can get away with this now.
But did he actually use chemical weapons, or is this all in oil issues?
So the conspiracy is that he did. He hasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an opinion that basically maybe the rebels could have orchestrated this to up the U.S. involvement in the country.
Yeah.
So for regime change, right?
Well, also the UN, I believe, did tell Syria, like, you have to get rid of your chemical weapons.
Yeah.
So
and then we find news that Britain has mentioned being involved, or Russia has mentioned that Britain is responsible for the.
Yeah, the Kremlin came out and said that. A few generals came out and said.
Again, I don't have any.
Let's trust what the Russians say.
Again, I don't trust that either.
Yeah.
But and then London said, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
What's her name in the UK?
Theresa May.
Theresa May is saying that she now has evidence when a few days prior was saying she doesn't have evidence. It's just, but she won't show anybody any evidence, right? No one's seen any evidence of anything.
It's for me. There's two facets to this. It's weird when I see unilateral support across the aisle for one action to happen. Like, it's bipartisan when it comes to Syria and attacking Syria. That's, to me, is always odd when both sides align and coordinate together to push the president to do something. And then the second thing is I was actually watching Sky News, and they were doing an interview with a British commander from Iraq, and he brought up this idea that we're talking about, that why would Assad attack his own people? Why, when he's winning the war? The U.S. military has said previous months ago that we've completely secured.
Yeah.
So nothing's happening right now.
Are we black screened? Are we out?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. I'm only seeing a black screen.
I'm gonna drop this.
There we go. We're back.
Maybe
I don't-
not. I don't know.
I don't know. I can see us.
You can see us?
It's kind of blurry, but I can see us. Yeah.
Should I drop the stream or?
No,
No, continue.
Just let it buffer up.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, we're having some technical difficulties. But I think we're back on live.
We think? Okay. Well,
yeah.
do you want to continue that conversation?
So Alex, what I was mentioning is, you were talking about how it's either the Assad regime or it's ISIS, and I disagree with that, because if you do look back at how the Syrian civil war started, it does go back to sort of the Arab Spring times. So it was actually a movement by the people to want to get rid of the Assad regime. Now, other people have walked in and exploited that motive, but it is on the large part, it is the people that were initiating, hey, we don't want this the Assad regime anymore.
Like the CIA, who was responsible for going in then and trying to topple their government, like what, 10 years ago, or
no,
arming the rebels.
No. So like in Egypt, right? So like
no, I know the Arab Springs were.
Yeah, so that's how we got into this. So what happened is that the people got together, started protesting, and then the Assad regime responded with violence, and that kicked off the Syrian civil war.
Yeah.
You also have to remember that this conflict over there is like 14 different tribes fighting.
Well, that's become one of the sort of problems, is that it's more or less the people that have wanted this change, but now they weren't really good at organizing themselves and selecting a single leader and like making it sort of like an organization versus another organization. And that's where you've gotten this tribe, this faction, the Free Syrian Army, all this other stuff. ISIS has come in and tried to exploit it. So like it's gotten really complicated really quickly, but it did start from a protest of the people.
I would say that I'm most disappointed, though, is with Donald Trump and this whole aggression policy of bombing a country that we really have no purpose in bombing without congressional approval, which is, to me, is the biggest thing. I know Barack Obama did the same thing, which I'm wholeheartedly against as well. And, you know, it started with George Bush, too.
Well,
I think this is the biggest problem.
Well, it is constitutionally legal for the president to
if we're threatened.
Okay, I'll just stop talking. Can I finish?
Yeah.
It is legal for the president to sort of conduct a military operation in which there is not enough time for a congressional hearing and a voting and all that stuff too. He does have that authority. He doesn't have the authority to carry out a war. That needs congressional approval. But to do sort of an attack like this is not, by what we have currently, whether you agree or disagree with it, is not illegal.
Okay. But still, I stand with Rand Paul on that, where you called out Pompeo for the whole administration, rather, for this just aggressive action.
He's also
very aggressive.
He also said before he was president, was talking about how Obama shouldn't do these strikes and stuff like that. So it is interesting. It's complete hypocrisy to go then and do it. But I will say, once you're in the office and you are privy to what's going on in the world, things change. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but you have a different perspective when you're in the office.
Of course.
Deep State's got him.
Yeah, that's right.
Israel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it was just fair that we touched on that for a minute, because a lot's happening with that every day. It's definitely maybe the scariest moments of our lives, possibly a World War III on the edge of all this, to where I think it's.
I don't think so.
Where I start, like, especially, and it's coming now from both sides, it seems like, especially on the left side, because it's Trump's in office. Like, we do military operations all the time to varying scales, big ones, small ones. But like every time we do something, like, we don't need to go around saying like, oh, World War III is about to start. Oh, right. World War III is about to start. Like,
no, but we're trying to piss off many a country in getting involved in a lot of this. I think it's a dangerous gamble.
I think we should be concentrating more on ourselves. Right now.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that, but to sound the alarms of World War III after every little thing happens is you're gonna be the person crying wolf.
It's also just like, why us? Why do we have to be the forefront on all these things?
I'd
why?
like to know the same damn.
I don't
thing.
think that we're necessarily in a World War stage.
No.
Or like,
why does
you're
America
not.
have to be the one that has to go and bully other countries or police other countries in the way they react to things within their own countries?
I mean, not that I necessarily agree with it, but I mean, it kind of, in some ways, I would say it maybe comes with the territory of being the largest military by, the nearest military size is, like, I think the next three or four countries after us.
Why not the EU then? Why not the EU take care of that?
Well, because the EU is.
It's the EU.
Is the EU? Yeah, it's ineffective.
It's dysfunctional.
It's ineffective. But I mean, it does. In my opinion, it kind of comes with some of the territory of being the global leader.
Yeah, but we should
both economically, militarily, everything. Like, not that I'm saying it's necessarily our responsibility. Maybe it isn't, but I mean, it kind of does come with the territory.
Walk quietly, carry a big stick.
I think it's a serious problem, but I think we should move on into our topic of the episode.
Right.
Although we could probably spend an hour arguing about Syria. I think the topic is really kind of actually relevant in a sense. The philosophy of freedom. think we relate a lot to this in a lot of our episodes. We talk a lot about personal liberty and freedom and the ideas that are kind of exist behind it. But we've never really focused and just done an episode talking about the cores of this and why we are so aligned to these ideas. I think there's a serious issue with our generation not understanding these basic principles, and the voting of, I know at least my age group and the people around me and the stuff you see on social media, it starts to make me more and more nervous that we are forgetting some of these very simple, very real principles.
Well, I think it really ties into, especially nowadays, we're so interconnected by technology and whatnot. And it's so much easier to get certain storylines. I guess I don't want to say propaganda, because that's what it is. It's easier to propagandize storylines and make them appeal to your emotions real quickly now. And that's when, like, especially when I'm watching like all these YouTube protests and like all the protest videos of guys going out into these marches and whatnot, you start to hear a narrative throughout all of them. All the people are starting to repeat themselves over and over again, and it's on both sides. I'm not trying to point on one side. It's both sides are starting to pick their team narratives and their storylines that they want to have. It's almost like marketing, but for propaganda. It's so,
tribalism.
Yeah, it's so insidious now. It really is.
Yeah, I do just kind of want to make a point of sort of, hey, let's not forget this too. If for us to sort of compare kind of some of the things that we're seeing with, the technology and social media and just the quickness that information can flow, is that we have also made the points multiple times that, what we're usually seeing, what's usually presented to us, is usually not the opinions of most people.
Correct.
So, like, I just want to make sure that we're careful of not sort of like harping on like the extremes of both sides and be like, oh, see, the left views all the extremes, but
right.
let's not be hypocrites. Like we've talked many times about how if you walked up to the average person on the street and asked them what their political views are, they're not going to have these extreme views most of the time.
Then
yeah,
let's
but
boil
they
it down
still
to
don't.
the average person. Then let's talk about the average person and what they believe.
I don't know. I would agree and disagree. Like, I agree that most people don't have these extreme views, but I think that they don't analyze things in the way of freedom, and they would more likely support government or an increase in authority somewhere over controlling other people in some area of their life. They're not consistent with that principle, and it's because these ideas are, I feel, lost, and that's something that why I wanted to really cover this episode.
I think to a degree, in their minds, they don't view that government equals not freedom. Like, to them, in some of their views, freedom is also within the government.
It's incorporated.
Like, the government is part of freedom. Now, how big and how small that is, that's where the debate lies. I would say fundamentally I hold that opinion that we have to have some form of government. We have to have some sort of rules as a society and elect some sort of body to govern those rules.
Yeah,
and that is what a government is. Now, so, my ideas, like, the fundamental difference is, obviously what the size of that government is, but you can see how some people may find this level of government is still freedom, and some people might find this level of government is still freedom, and we will disagree on that. But I just don't want to conflate that, people that believe in government don't believe in freedom.
No.
Yeah,
it's their flavor.
You can have government, but government's job should just be to protect the simple principles of liberty. And
I don't disagree with that, but
they shouldn't have. And there's a lot of great thinkers that have written tons of literature on this for hundreds of years, and we've just, I think, slowly drifted away from that. And as you see, our government's the largest government in world history, and we're not making the right direction. And if we're talking about being free, we're going the wrong direction. And yes, there can still be government. I know that you're saying that as well, because you know how my views are, which I can understand. Like, I align with like 99% of the way with a libertarian, which still believes in government. But I kind of have some areas where I will disagree in. But I do think you can still have pretty much an absolute, or as close to absolute freedom with government still involved. I don't think you're wrong.
See, that's where I tend to disagree. So I want to get back to like what the average person, like the simple narratives of every common day. So like money, for example. Money is an infringement upon our freedoms. 100%.
The money system,
because
just
it
money
rules,
in general.
No, it's because freedom, because it rules our life. It dictates how we should live our lives. So therefore, it does rule us. It does infringe upon our freedoms. Now we do have the freedom to use it in a certain way.
Can I ask just what? I'm not necessarily disagreeing. I'm asking for clarification.
Yeah.
What freedom does it infringe on?
So
what specific one?
The freedom of choice, number one, because in debt, when you're in debt, you don't have choice. You have to. There's
but
always
is that personal responsibility?
Yeah, but money doesn't necessarily isn't sort of correlated to debt. Like just because you have a money system doesn't mean you have debt.
So here, let me go even further.
Okay.
So money in itself is an illusion. It's an illusion. I mean, so we created this illusion. We created this common storyline that we hand between each other. So we say, hey, this piece of money has value. This piece of paper has value, or whatever you want to call a currency. And then so that's what I'm saying. Like we are tied to that storyline.
But we as a society mutually agree to that. Like if I make a product,
but is
for
that
example,
freedom though?
Well, so I don't think it necessarily infringes on freedom. So, for example, I make a product, right? If I say I'm going to sell you this product for $500 because I think it's worth $500, and you're like, nah, I think it's only worth $300. Like we come to a mutual agreement about what, like when you make a purchase, you literally are saying, I find whatever I'm about to buy more valuable than the money I have in my hand.
I also think though, like. Also, the view of our current system as our money enforced by the government is not freedom. I think in the sense of if you wanted to agree to whatever terms of exchange of resources for that device, whether it be we majoritarily agreed to the green dollar or whatever it may be, it could be that you agreed to gold. It could be you agreed to a service. It could be you
or
agreed
another
to
item,
another
like this
item.
versus that.
All I'm saying,
I think that is where freedom exists. I don't think money itself is the problem. I think the fact of a monopoly on how we exchange goods is the problem, and I think that's where government gets involved in becoming the problem of it.
It's just
I don't think money inherently is the problem.
Well, it's because there's so much pleasure and there's so much suffering tied to this inanimate object that all I'm saying is that what we view as freedoms, particularly in America, are very illusionary. They're very illusionary. Like, so for example,
is that necessarily
wrong?
No,
I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
I get a lot of value and happiness out of owning this computer.
Our inalienable rights are illusionary. That's just a value system that we have created.
Of course.
Hey,
I think I know where you're going. But
okay,
you're more spiritual freedom than you are
as a human being.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. But
like this is total pure anarchy.
No, I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying to
It's
understand.
like, I'm trying to break it down to the very fundamental layer of
what
we are as human beings.
But if you go in the direction of anarchy. Like
it's not even systems. It's not even governmental systems.
No, and I'm not talking about systems. But I guess if you just strip everything away and just just humans do whatever they want, however they want, whenever they want, in whatever ways they want, and all the infinite possibilities that could go, I don't see that as no, it's not that it's I don't see it as feasible actually, but I don't see it as conducive to natural human instincts.
Yeah,
natural human instincts. We are community animals. Like we come together and establish whether it's 5 people, 10 people, 1 million people. Yeah. We establish these communities. So your idea of doing things however you want and whatever you want, you're fine to do that, but you need to either have a community on your own to do that or join a community that is about that.
I just want to add a question to that.
But then as soon as you join another community that has established rules, you've just gotten rid of your thing.
So is pure freedom, true freedom found in a group or in the individual itself?
In the individual, but it could
individuals. But in order to have the freedoms, you have to be in the community. Like to be by yourself, okay, yeah, I guess you can do whatever, whenever, how you want, but then you're also like, okay, who are you going to buy something from?
Yeah,
who are you going to trade with? Who are you going to
benefit from?
And to some degree,
you benefit greatly from others.
Unless you're going to be unless you're going to be 100% self-sustainable in every single way, meaning you personally will make your own clothes, buy or grow your own food, manufacture your own computer, whatever it may be, to whatever nth degree that goes to.
Right.
that's the only way that you, I guess, will have that sort of freedom, and I don't think that's feasible.
So take that, of course. So that's why I just wanted to set the foundation of what true freedom is, and that's pretty close.
I guess on one extreme, that would be the true freedom, but that is not. Like that is an idea that it's not actually going to be executed.
So then now compare it to where we live now.
I don't know. I'd like to break it down to like but I see what I think of freedom a little bit more than like that's I do it.
Well, he just wanted to establish sort of the baseline.
The baseline of like what the ideal
like I just think that is
freedom.
What is complete 100% freedom, and then we just stack on top of that.
And then we can compare it to like today.
I think living in a society
like
freedom.
Why?
And I think living in a society freedom, and I think there's two major pieces of freedom, and it's self-ownership and property ownership, and knowing the difference in those and what's important to those, I think helps you understand the basics of freedom. Are you familiar? I think we should explain self-ownership, but self-ownership is that you own everything you, right? I own what I've done, what my work is.
Right.
I own my past, present, and future, essentially. So if you kill me, you've taken my future. You've taken my you've infringed on my rights, right? That's something that I think a minimum government should protect against. Like that is something that I consider a very simple, and I think there's a lot of laws that we have that are just too much, but I haven't affected anybody. Until I affect somebody, I'm fine, right? And you take care of yourself. You take care of yourself. I can't tell you how to live your life. If you want to do this, go do this. If I don't want you to do that, I can't make you not do that.
How do you fit that in with externalities?
Explain.
So an externality is I do something that benefits me but affects other people unintentionally. So, for example, if I dump nuclear waste into a river and I pollute the whole river, kill all the fish, and you're trying to get drinking water out of that, and now I've affected you.
Well, you absolutely have affected me, so that's a problem.
But that is
so
an
you're
externality.
Wrong. But you're wrong.
Yeah, no,
because you affected someone else.
At the right of that,
negatively.
it's as soon as you've touched somebody, either it be 1 or 100 people, or 1 or 100 people affecting you by yourself, whatever it is. Like, it doesn't matter if you are negatively impacted by somebody else. It's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like anyone drinking it. So like
so you extend this to unintentional consequences of something.
Yes.
Like
me polluting the river. I'm not trying to harm you.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get rid of my waste, and I'm living however I want to live. I'm not, whatever. Even if let's say it doesn't. Let's say it doesn't poison you. Like you're personally not affected, but I pollute the whole river.
Yeah, but we don't know it's happening or whatever. Maybe it's a pollution, but we don't know that it kills me until 10 years down the road.
Or it doesn't. But it just pollutes the river.
I get that, but I don't think that these are crimes that deserve to be punished by put you in a cage or kill you or lock you up.
Well, I'm not arguing how it is punished. I'm arguing whether it's legal or illegal.
It's still affected somebody, right? It's still infringed. Like when we're able to identify how it's affected somebody, then we should figure it out from there.
So I guess
and then property ownership, I think, is just very straightforward. It's just I own this. You want it? I can trade it with you. I can, like we were just talking about, we can sell things back and forth. But I benefit from doing something for somebody else and them doing something in return for me. And I think if you take any of my stuff, you steal, you do anything without any, I guess the key word is voluntary. Voluntary actions, right? If I give you something, I'm giving you something with my own will, then it's okay. If somebody else takes that without my own will, this is where I draw, where no matter what you say, tax is theft because of this principle. And is that if someone takes something without my will, they're forcing it upon me. I'm born into this system. It is technically theft. And this is where I go on the, there's rants and I get kind of crazy about this stuff, but it is true. Yes, I want to live in this society and I live here and I'm born here and all this other stuff, but it doesn't change the principle of it is that it is theft or that it is a act of aggression. The same thing with tariffs or borders or blockades for countries. Those are all acts of war. Those are all aggressive acts to stop or manipulate or put force on somebody else's will. And I don't think those should ever be allowed.
Okay. So back to the property ownership thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to use my externality example again and just see where you lie on this perspective. Okay, so you own the property, right? And let's say I own the property next door. You're free to do whatever you want with your property?
Yeah.
So what would you say if you did something to your property? Let's say your property is just an absolute piece of shit junkyard, and I've got a really nice house. Mm-hmm. So would you say that your junkyard, well, and it can and does, affects the property value of my house? So would you see
Yes
that as an
no.
externality?
And so, for example,
So-
in this case, there are lots of areas in the country that don't have like HOAs
Zoning laws.
or any.
Houston does not
issues,
have
right?
zoning laws.
Yeah,
There's
so
a zone de
you can do
erotica
that.
right next to a church.
And I think it's fantastic, right? You can do whatever you want, wherever you want in that business. If you feel like that
But
person
I'm not
has
talking about
affected you,
businesses.
or if you don't like the neighborhood that you live in because of that risk, then you go somewhere else, or
But do
they
you?
go somewhere
But do
else.
you have the
Now,
right to
if
do
you
something as an
agree-
externality that affects me?
It's within my property. It's not directly affecting you. Like
It is though, because now
this is
you're
something I would say no.
You're affecting my
No, I would
wealth.
say no. I would
Okay.
say no. Yeah. What's up?
I think what y'all are talking about is like the realities of the world we live in that like for all these people in this modern society to exist together, it's crazy to think that we could have true freedom and be able to coexist like that.
Well, I guess the fundamental point that I'm making is, while we should do our best to preserve freedom as much as we can, at the end of the day, because we live in a community, a society, whether again it's 5 people, 10 people,
Hang on.
am I still going?
There you go.
Whether it's 5 people, 10 people, or even 2 people, because you're adjoining to another person, there has to be some mutual agreement, meaning you are setting ground rules between each other. And that's my foundation of the argument that we need to have government. And then I build upon that foundation of, because we have a government, the government to do something has to have the means and ability to do that. So if I'm the government elected official and you have elected me on your behalf to execute a certain duty, whatever level of duty that may be,
Went down.
my labors must be compensated for. I don't work for free, because I'd be a slave then. So, but because my labors must be compensated, that's where taxes come from on a very fundamental basis. So that's why I would disagree with all taxes theft, because at a fundamental level, let's just say we're the community, and let's say that we have voted to have a community newsletter. I've been elected to do the newsletter. Cool. I'm providing a newsletter that we all agree that we're going to have. We're all going to sort of mutually benefit from it. Even if you didn't agree to have it,
agreed to
even
this?
if you didn't agree to have it, you live in a society where majority rules.
And
Because
this is a
See,
problem.
this is the problem. Yeah,
This is the
that's exactly
problem.
the
Is
But-
that it's
but that
not,
isn't the
it's not
problem.
voluntary. It's not. You have to voluntarily participate in it.
I want to add.
so then if you don't want to be part of the newsletter thing, go to another society where there isn't a newsletter.
No. That doesn't. That's not how it works. Is
Because-
that we live in a.
But that's what a democracy and a
Problematic.
republic is.
Yeah,
is
it's a
that
problem.
as a group we have decided under the democracy system
Yeah.
that
And
we are going to vote and everyone gets an equal say, but at the end of the day, a decision has to be made. Because can you imagine, let's say we have some form of government. Let's say it's the 3 of us. And us 3 together, okay, we've got to figure out, say there's no house, there's no food, no nothing. We have to decide how we're going to survive. So I vote, I want to grow corn, you want to grow wheat, you want to grow or you also want to grow corn, or whatever it may be. We have to come together to decide something mutually.
Yeah,
By statistics, there's going to be a decision to be made that not everybody agrees with.
of course.
Yeah. But
That's a principle of the community.
That's the danger of freedom, for the sense of like if a business doesn't want to bake a cake for a gay couple, like that's their right, and yes, people won't like that, but that is their right to not have to do it because it is their property. It is their choice.
Yes.
To do or do not to do whatever they
That's
want
not
to
what the
do.
And correct.
Supreme
And
But
so
that's the
those
problem.
those people
That's the
can't
thing with voluntary that you have to understand. Like there's a good and a bad of being voluntary, and I would much rather choose the good of voluntary and be a part of a voluntary system where I can say, hey, if I don't like how this newspaper is being run and it's being run like shit, I can pull my money from it and I can say, I don't want to support you. And that newspaper can in turn start to lose other people that don't want it, and that newspaper can change or go out of business.
So the way
and
that
we don't have that in any accountability with our government. Our government just grows, and grows.
Well,
So-
but
Because
like,
it's not voluntary. It's forced upon you with a gun or a cage.
and you, by living in the United States, have said, okay, I'm going to accept this. If you don't accept it, move somewhere else.
That's
Go
the
to
problem.
another system.
So how was this news? So for example, how would this newsletter be paid for?
So
Would you say taxes?
yes.
Okay, so I disagree. So it's gonna have to. What's gonna have to happen
It's
is
a
this
mind-
voluntary thing.
yes.
But what's gonna have to happen is it's gonna be a mind shift. It has to be a
exactly
mind
it.
state where they have to agree. Everyone has to volunteer their payment, and if they don't volunteer, that means the product's faulty.
Same thing with like the Warren
So
theory. I heard a great.
but let's. I'm gonna
You don't
break
need
it.
to force someone to pay.
Hold on, but
someone else
I'm gonna
like
break
that.
it down, I guess, and not use this whole money thing as taxes. But I will. It is a tax in another way. So let's say I have this newsletter, right? Okay, so I'm devoting my time towards the newsletter, which means I can't devote my time towards growing food.
Okay.
But you both are going to grow food. So we have elected as a group, maybe not 100%, but by majority, that we're going to have this newsletter. I'm going to do the newsletter, but to do the newsletter, I'm going to give you the newsletter so you receive the service that you elected to have, and I'm going to take, let's say, just 10% of your food, and now I have food.
Why
So-
would you just take it? We would just give it to you.
Yeah, that would be a voluntary exchange.
Yeah.
It's not a tax. A tax would be you force me at gun to give you some of my food.
Or any violent means.
and that if I don't give you the food, then you
can
then
use that violent
can,
means to
because
attack.
and you force me to take your newspaper. If I decided one day that I don't like your newspaper and I don't want to give you some of my food, then that's my choice to make, and that's the difference.
It's cold. It's definitely cold. It is cold.
So everyone sets up their own personal government then.
Everyone's
boils
there
back down to the
personally in
individual.
charge. Yes.
So then there is no government.
Yeah,
No, there is.
yeah.
The
Well,
government's to
It's a community.
to mediate that these principles are withheld.
So, but I guess that's what I'm kind of saying is that at some degree a rule has to be made,
Yes,
and
yes.
someone has to be there to enforce the
there
rule.
will be a
Yes.
leadership.
Whether you
test.
agree with the rule or not agree with the rule.
You're
Let's-
free to leave at any time. That's the whole
Yes.
point.
That's my point.
That's the
If
whole
you
point.
don't-
I missed that whole point.
Yes, that is almost the exact point that I'm making. So
Well,
let's
if
say
I could
hold
right
on,
now
hold on,
declare this my own land and get out of this country.
but you don't own it. The bank
I
does.
could. That is, there is massive problems with the way we think about this country. We were built to be this way. We have devolved to this, what we are today.
Travis wants to say something.
I just have a question for Carl and Alex. Do you believe we would have reached the point we are in society right now if society started off the way you were explaining?
Yes, I think we would have been further. Innovation, things
Is
would
it-
have been faster. Things would have been more done way better. In a marketplace of ideas like that, or a free market, you have
Since we're talking about freedom, I think that this starts to incorporate more. Hold on, this starts to incorporate more freedom, and the idea of individual freedom and even community freedom.
Yeah,
It
look, if
promotes
we
all of
wanted to
that.
live in a communist community, you could in this free society. If you and all the 6 neighbors or whatever wanted to live in a communistic style,
But that's
economy,
something that
you
we have
could.
decided
But it
as
has
a
to be
society.
free.
Hold on, but that's something that we have decided as a society that we are going to have this United States. Like that is going to be the community.
I'd sign up for that. I was born into it.
Yeah.
Yes, but your predecessors have. If you don't want to be in this sort of design
Right.
community that you were born into, go to somewhere else.
Well, no,
to
we can
make your own community.
No, the whole point is to affect change within.
Yes.
Can
That's
I-
the difference, is
can
to
I-
make this country see freedom again.
Travis wants to say something again.
Just back to what my question earlier, I personally don't believe that if we started off society that way, we would have made it, because it suggests a certain level of intelligence. Like, I think that it's easy to say, like, we all just need to get on the same page, but, like, there are societies in this world that are several decades behind in the way they think. And I just think that as a whole, we're still trying to evolve mentally to that point where we can
Right.
accept some sort of society like y'all are describing.
So this is where I was talking to y'all about this after like last week sometime. I feel like the society that we're talking about, which is more like the anarcho-capitalist kind of view, it's like would be a next step outside of all the systems of government that we're currently in, like all the socialism, fascism, whatever, the capitalisms, all those types, all those isms. This would be the next one where it's more about, we understand that there's something deeper than debt slavery, deeper than, you know, crony capitalism, crony any kind of, I guess, governmental system, that there's the individual and the group can coalesce together and be one, I guess, identity, and you can be yourself, and you don't have to put violence on top of everything that you do, on every situation, every economic decision you make. It doesn't have to be backed by violence.
That's really what it all boils down to in this philosophy, though.
Do you think that it's actually realistic that we'll get there to that degree?
Well, the way the propaganda, the way that propaganda has completely devolved our minds into these identities, like these tribal identities, back to the primitive state, I really think it's going to be hard to climb back up. But the only reason why I think the past has showed us that history comes in cycles. And well, hold on, I just want to add one more thing. For example, like, you know, like the Enlightenment era, excuse me, and then like the Greeks and stuff. Those people, that was what, 1,000 centuries ago. I mean, those people were the peak intelligence of humanity. So it's just going to come back.
I wouldn't call them the peak intelligence
for their time. They were saying
for their time, but we're the peak of intelligence. Like every day is the new peak of intelligence.
Let me finish. Like, for example, Aristotle was predicting things that are happening now. Like,
it does this is what he's saying.
It comes in it's peaks and troughs, and troughs. I think we're in that trough era, and we're going to come back at a huge, with automation and all that. It's going to come right back up.
So I guess what I'm saying, and maybe I'm not clarifying it enough or saying it in the right way, but if you agree to have the community, like, so how would a society like what you guys are proposing work? Like, so in my community of, let's say I'm my own government, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, in my government, I've decided murder's okay today.
No, that is wrong.
But hold on, but this is my government. This is my land.
That's the difference. That is the thing.
That's the group delineation.
There is an overarching law of self-ownership and property rights.
Okay.
And outside of that, then we have a lot more freedom. And when like there is a natural, agreed upon, societal, just your life is very important, your property is very important. And outside of that, we have debates or talks, or we can talk about all the other things, but murder is your life.
Okay.
Or someone's property.
Okay, so let me just rephrase then, and I won't use it as murder or whatever. Mm-hmm. Let's say I decide today rape is legal. That is aggression. Okay, let me see.
You're any act of aggression
that
on
someone else's personal liberty or freedom. That's
if
wrong.
That person,
morally wrong.
Do you think it's realistic that people will live in a complete non-aggressive state?
We live in that right now. We automatically agree to these ideas. We all know that rape is wrong. We all know that murder is wrong.
Hold on, wait. But in some societies, having sex with a boy isn't wrong. Like, I'm saying that, like, do you think it's actually feasible to get to a level to where everyone's just like, oh, everything's just perfect. Everyone just, like, I just don't see that ever happen.
Education over generations.
Yes, generations. It's going to take generations, but we all have to. We have to set the storyline that everyone will start to follow.
Understanding what aggression is.
Hold on, let him finish.
So we set a foundational storyline that everyone believes in. So, like I was talking about money, everyone literally buys into that story, that this is how we live our lives. So we have to be able to buy into these stories.
Okay.
And see, that's where it gets back to that weird area of, is that freedom? If we're buying into someone else's ideas and saying, this is how I'm going to live my life. And so we have accepted these roles of money, currency, property, all that. We've accepted that as part of our lives.
So I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm understanding this properly. So by your sort of viewpoint, or what your society would look like is, okay, let's say Houston, Texas decides on one particular rule that I don't agree with. Okay, cool. I can move to Dallas, and Dallas has a difference. So
And you're free to set your own community together. Too.
So do you understand? Like, can you maybe see how complicated that would be
Yes.
to navigate?
It's hard work.
Like, I would just never want to leave anywhere because, like, shit, I don't know what the laws are 10 feet this way and 10 feet that way.
Hold
But that's
on. It's because your mindset is conditioned to the idea of
That
what
law-
we're living in right now.
Yeah, you think that laws should be normal.
No. Hold on.
It's hard work.
No,
It is
no.
hard work. I'm not saying
I'm
it's
just
easy.
saying let's say this city has 5 rules, this society has 6, this one has 13, this one has 14. Like,
But
I would be afraid to go anywhere
The
because
law
I'd
of
be
probability will
you-
say that you will find the correct one for you.
And
And
there's
you're
also
free to move around to other ones too.
there's also a very, 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 very highly low possibility that it is going to be very different per state. That it is going to be like when we get these ideas ingrained at a cultural, like everyone in this society gets these basic understandings of life and property, and they are self-ownership and property, and we all can agree to
but
this.
that's super
There-
basic.
there's-
Like I can get on with
there's
the
no
life and
more-
property, but when you
there's-
start talking about everything else, we have to
there's
deal with a society.
very little other law that we need, because when you have all these other laws and you have all, where again, like Carl was kind of saying, you're thinking in this today's society that we have billions of laws to tell everyone
know if
how
it's
to do
billions,
it.
but-
It probably is. It's just insane. It's just way too many laws, and we need to get rid of
I don't
all
necessarily
these
disagree
laws.
with that. We have too
Yeah,
many
like,
laws, but
There is a problem,
We-
and
I
like
think
it
we
will
need
be
more than
way
2.
simpler than it would be today.
Travis.
So I don't want to poke a hole in y'all's utopia.
No, poke it.
or anything, but I think that for something like that to exist, yes, one, there needs to be this fundamental cultural shift, but I also believe like certain necessities need to be met for every single living human being. Otherwise, like if you're born into this society and they're like, yeah, but it's a free society, but your dad was an asshole and you have nothing and you have to build your way up from nothing, and you see somebody else that has, oh, their dad wasn't an asshole and so he set him up well because, you know, we have a free society, and then this other guy just says fuck it and wants to just burn the whole place down. Like, what's stopping that guy?
Stopping him from burning the place down.
Yeah, like what is prevent, like what
People
are you
with guns?
Yes, like you have the right to protect yourself and do whatever you can to protect those basic liberties. And if other people agree to help you protect those things, then you have the right to do that. You do not have the need or the right to initiate that force. And that person is then initiating that force.
so what happens when somebody breaks the rule?
They've initiated the force, and
No,
we...
I'm not talking about
Oh,
your
that's
2 rules, just
complicated.
a rule. Let's say the society
Cage.
on top of your 2
No, I'm just kidding.
on top of your 2 rules, let's say there's a third one added that's, I don't know, pay your credit card debts. I don't know, whatever. I'm not gonna
Right.
don't harp on
Well,
the actual
it-
example,
it-
but I'm
it
just
really
saying,
wouldn't be.
let's
It
say
would
there's
fall
a
into
rule
property rights.
that someone breaks. What's the consequence of breaking that rule?
That's a good question.
And who enforces that?
It's society's job to figure this out. It's so like if we all decide that, okay, you'll pay a reasonable toll, a reasonable fine to this, and you just don't do. Now, if it's life or other things, like we can have
Again,
debates.
take it out of the
Again,
first 2
I mean,
rules.
there-
I'm saying
there's
some
serious-
other rule.
There's serious debates, right, that we can have, and probably some litigation lawyers, you know, trying to figure out what it is that we can come to an agreement on of who was affected and who was the person that committed or affected the.
We do
the
have that now.
Yes, yeah.
We have legal
would still have
precedent.
a legal system, but greatly reduced from what it is today.
Yeah, but like, not to say that we started off with just 2 rules and then like things just got exponentially more complicated, but that's where some of these rules came from, is that, okay, here's this particular situation that we went to the courts to, and the courts decided in this particular way. So that sets a legal precedent. So that's
Yeah,
where
but
new rules come
The
about.
problem is it's not case by case, and a lot of this
Well,
needs to be case by case.
But it is generally case
And
by case
then
because
there's like minimum
because-
sentencing and like all this other crap.
Well, I'm not talking
that,
about. Hold on, but like you're
that's
taking my
all.
one little nutshell and saying trying to paint the whole tree. I'm not going with minimum sentencing. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just talking about from a fundamental standpoint. If some particular case happens and the judge says, okay, cool, found you guilty, for this crime you're sentenced to 3 years probation. Now, you would not be able to then go, if that's sort of the legal precedent, and how that works is that, let's say you have a similar but not exact case, because there's no such thing as an exact case. the judge has to look at what is the legal precedent. Like, what is the appropriate punishment? They can't say, for this one, I'm going to sentence you life in prison.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
so that's where some of these rules come about, is like through and
okay.
some of the laws that we have in the United States came about by decisions like this. So not all the laws that we've added are necessarily bad laws. And I don't know. I would just be very careful to say, like, okay, let's just screw all the laws. Let's go back to 2 and start the building process over again.
It's if this is a new system, then there has to be new precedents. There has to be new
and
precepts for everything.
And I'm okay with saying, okay, these laws we need to get rid of, but I guess what I'm seeing, or
Lean
maybe
the fat, pretty much.
Yes, but I guess what I'm hearing, or what it seems like, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we want to revert back to sort of like these 2 basic laws.
Because pretty much,
can I finish?
Yeah.
We want to revert back to these 2 basic rules and then start the legal precedents all over again.
Oh, hold on.
I think there are. Well, no, I'm not saying that is the case. I'm saying that's what I'm getting. That's the picture I feel like y'all are painting.
Is almost every law falls under one of these 2 principles.
That's what I was going to say. So you could start to narrow down the columns of each and fit them into categories almost, and then fit those into subsects in different subcategories and whatnot. So you can align them to certain of those 2. There's of course there's more. You can start to align those into certain directions, and based on those the previous systems precedents, and start learn from the past, learn from history.
Okay, so another question. In let's say this said society, and you guys have, it seems like you guys come to agreement that if someone breaks the rule, they get some sort of punishment. So for all that to happen, where does the money come from to make such things happen? Like how where does the money for the courts come from?
It's volunteered, because we all have this idea of justice. So if we all volunteer our justice in the form of money,
which you do when you are sent to
so basically you want every law to the individual person to say, no, I don't support that law. I'm not going to pay my portion of taxes for that. I support that one. I'm going to pay the. No, that's what I'm asking.
The leadership, you would have a leadership in these communities and whatnot. There would be a leadership sect.
But wouldn't by definition, like, there's a statistical probability that me personally, I'm not going to agree with all the single rules on there. So like, I potentially am going to have to pay for a rule
perfect.
That's what I'm saying. I guess that's what I'm asking, because it seems like if you say all tax is theft. Well, not necessarily, because if you agree with these rules and you opt into that system,
all tax is theft at the foundational level because of its definition. It's because
it's not voluntary.
It's not voluntary. You have to pay it.
Well, I would argue that it is voluntary.
It is not.
Can I make my argument before you just cut me off?
Go ahead.
I would argue that in some ways it is voluntary because you are electing to still be a part of this society.
Debatable.
Like we have. Okay, in the United States, we have taxes. That is something, whether you necessarily agree with them, obviously you disagree with them, but you're still choosing to live in the United States.
Correct.
You could go to somewhere else where they maybe have less taxes, or somewhere else that maybe they don't have any taxes.
The problem is that what this country originally is founded for is not this. And
the founding fathers set up taxes.
Not income tax.
I'm not saying the degree of taxes. Hold on, I'm not saying the degree of taxes, but they certainly did not. They certainly agreed that we need to have some tax.
I just wanted to add another comment, because it sounds like a lot of your society can be broken down to one fundamental principle, and that seems to be property. Because you could say like your life is your property, and it's all about defending your property, but how do you define property? Like, if you were to create this society and you reset everything, how do you determine who owns what?
Anything that was taken from nature and turned into something of resource.
So like proprietary seeds? So I took that and engineered that to a product. I'm just saying.
This is where I disagree with him, and I agree with you on.
Disagree.
Like, I think that is a product of your property.
So who determines who gets access to what natural resources?
That's a good question.
No one.
We use natural resources.
Yeah, but like, so who would determine you? Who says you?
So
don't have access?
let's say there's a mine, right? Like, there's this mine. It can only it can only output X amount of metal. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And I need X amount of metal to do what I want to do. This guy needs X amount of metal to do what he wants to do. And this other guy needs X amount of metal.
So
but we don't have 3X metal. We only have 1X metal.
Yeah, so we all fight for the best price and what we can do to get the best deal on. not physically, but with our dollar. I'd say, okay, you are the person who found this mine and is mining it. If it's your mine, it's on your area of property. You've discovered it. You've started mining it. Then you can charge me whatever you want for that.
How did I determine it was my property?
You came upon it. You spent the time.
So
and
everything
the
I look
resources.
at, I can just be like, that's mine. That's mine.
You spent the time and the resources to get that out of the earth, to
but
refine it,
I guess,
and to then get it to a
how'd you
consumer's
prospect
hands.
it? That's the question.
Yeah, like, do you just walk up to a piece of land and be like, flag here, flag here, flag here,
And
flag
this is where it
here,
gets
that's
tricky.
mine.
This is where it gets tricky.
Like,
This
how
is
do
where
you-
I'm a little gray.
How do
on
you
this.
figure out how property is divided?
Exactly. Don't look at me. This is where I'm
looking
gray.
right at
Oh,
you.
no. I know. Like for answers, 'cause this is where I'm still learning.
Like,
this whole.
yeah.
Still learning about this.
Because,
too.
I mean, technically, like, yeah, you're a homeowner, right? But you don't actually own this property.
No.
The bank does.
The bank does.
Because you lent money from the bank.
Just so I can make my
Not to necessarily put your finances on blast, but, I mean, many homeowners do that.
Yeah, just so I can make my position very clear. Like, I would love to live in a society that you guys are describing. I just think feasibly and like the mindset of most people, like, I just don't know if that can happen.
To me, it's not necessarily about the. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to add. This could with our coming technology, I think what could really change this and make it even more feasible is automation. Automation could really change the dynamic of all of our systems. And see, this is where the capitalist system of the crony capitalist system that we currently live in is. It's going to be either it could be a really good thing that happens or a really bad thing with the influx of automation, because you're going to
Let's flip the coin.
You're right. No, that's what it's getting to. It feels like it's because you're going to have a class of people that are just going to be disenfranchised completely. They're going to just be left to the wasteland, not unskilled, completely. Like, what are they supposed to do? Like, what are we going to do? But if we had automation where we had our society, it's not what you're better at someone else's where the competition's there. It's what you're best at, the individual is best at, and they can form a community that has automation providing the resources that they need.
So I'm gonna turn
Utopia, sorry.
I'm gonna turn our attention to this video because I kind of really want us to like watch it together and kind of break it down, because I actually find it really interesting. You folks are not gonna be able to see this at home on the YouTube because it'll get flagged and pulled down. But anyway, yeah, go ahead and roll it, and I'll tell you maybe when
the
it's
title is Yarn Brooks Answers Inequality Under Capitalism.
So the reason why I brought this up right now is because I think we're kind of delving into sort of like some sort of inequality system or equality. Like how has it become fair, I guess. So anyway, let's.
Income inequality in a free society? Who cares? I have no idea if it would be bigger, smaller, what it would be, how you
I like this guy's accent.
It's irrelevant. The only relevant thing in a free society is how am I doing? Am I doing as good as I can do? If not, it's up to me to improve. A free society makes it possible for individuals to do the best that they can do. To have a higher standard of living that they can produce. A free society is not about what your neighbor's doing. The whole issue of income inequality is to compare people. But why is comparison important? The important thing is, am I doing the best that I can? Is my standard of living rising? Am I living a better life? Now, for almost everybody who's willing to be productive and to work, they are better off in a free society. So the poor are better off than they are in a free society than they are in.
I definitely agree with that.
So what do you guys think about his
poverty? Poverty has significantly decreased across the world, particularly in first world countries. So it still exists. Don't get me wrong. Poverty still exists, but it's in comparison to previous centuries and decades and ages and whatnot. This is those people that were predicting how poverty would decrease or increase are blown away by how fast it has decreased in our current society.
You guys are killing me with cutting me off. So I guess the question I was going to ask was, what are your thoughts on his statements of where he's talking about like why are we comparing people for like income inequality and stuff like that?
I find it obnoxious to compare people, and like I mean I think that is a root of one of the biggest problems in our society, and why I think people fall into this trap of socialism as an idea is that it's not about overall wealth. To them is just that they just hate the rich. It's not about that they like the poor. It's that they hate the rich, and it's just it's a comparison constantly of everything and what you have versus, and I think this is a problem that we talked about on social media. This is a problem we talk in a lot of areas of our show. We've talked about people comparing themselves to another person and the problems that come from that. And I think this is breaking it down to why it's a problem.
I think it's also because we're certain classes, economic classes of society in America are fed a certain narrative where they have to compete to the top level to get into the upper echelons of economic status. So I think it's more along the line of the middle class and the upper middle class that it's the rat race, pushing to fight.
That was kind of something that I was going to kind of say is like, to me, I think the comparisons of people is almost unavoidable because like in capitalism, I've got to compare two products, two companies. I got to this maybe private company for this like I've got to compare things all the time. For me to compete for that job, I've got to make sure that I'm the best qualified person. Well, how do I determine I'm the best qualified person? I look at the other people and say, they don't have the same qualifications I do. I'm better than they are.
Right.
Like you have to compare yourself to people.
Would you say that
In capitalism, I think.
Would you say
that's where I would somewhat disagree with that.
Would you say that mentality has amplified in the past?
Well, I think it can be
the industrial age, I guess.
Well,
rather.
I mean, I think it could be used for good and bad. Like, for example, I think the constant comparison of like Hollywood celebrities, like I think that's stupid. But me comparing my skills, my computer skills or my IT skills to your IT skills, like, that's
to me that's it.
And at the same time though, I also want to compare what my skills are worth. So I want to find somebody comparable to my skill sets and saying, oh, well, that person's making $70,000. Why am I only making 50? I have a comparable skill set that they do. I should maybe get paid that much, or maybe they are getting paid too much. Like, I think that's part of capitalism is comparison.
Would you say that just based on what you said and just how stressful it sounds, do you think that the suicide rates that are occurring, the high rates of suicide nowadays, do you think that plays a correlation into that possibly?
I mean, yeah,
like,
but I
this
don't think
absolute
I can't
stress
say
of
it's a
the
direct-
industrial
But
age.
suicide rates are down.
No, suicide rates in men are going up. They're skyrocketing.
So as far as the comparison thing, what I think he was hitting on
In the
here-
U.S.?
In the U.S., yes.
What I think from what he was hitting on was more economically, like how much wealth you have and comparing yourself to somebody else's wealth. Am I wrong? Isn't that what he was pretty much talking about?
Yeah. But
So,
that's
like-
where I was comparing, saying like, how do I get the standard, or like, where do I sort of get data? Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Okay.
Where do I sort of get data of how valuable my particular skill sets are worth?
So-
As I compare myself to the average, IT person with 4 years of experience and these certifications and whatever. Like, I'm comparing myself to someone else's income to figure out a relative of what my skills are worth.
I just don't think comparing someone's overall wealth is the same thing as comparing what your skill may be worth at it in a particular task. I think I can find out, how much I could sell this device for by asking a bunch of different people what they would pay for it, versus like me having to compare myself to you based off how many have you sold, and guess how well, I've been selling the same thing, and then maybe how much money have you made this year, and like I didn't make that. Well, there's a lot of other factors that play into, like, well, how well of a salesman are you? How many people do you know? Are you in a better market than I am? Do I need to find a better market?
Well, that's what I'm saying by that
I
comparison. It's not necessarily the individual comparison, like say me versus Carl, but it's me versus the market. Like, what does the market say these skills are worth?
Yeah,
Okay, and how does that determine? How
And
much
I
do you
think
make? How much
market
do you make? How much
research,
do you make?
I would say is different than comparison of my wealth to your wealth.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah.
Do you want to continue the video, Travis?
Okay.
We guess. Yeah.
Did we have another stat up? What's the?
Oh, I just pulled the
Oh yeah,
suicide rates up.
So yeah,
Yeah.
they're rising.
Is
They're on the rise.
is this in men or just
Yeah, this
in
is-
general?
this
What are
is
the
in-
general stats?
This is for men.
for men? in
Okay. What
particular.
about just people? Let's not put some identity politics on it.
Is that
That's a lot of suicides. Men die at 3.5.
Yeah, I know that. I'm not worried about that.
Okay. Yeah, there should be. Okay, well, this doesn't tell us anything about increasing. Go down. So I mean, if you look at the graph here, it does show. Is this put up on this?
no?
Okay.
I mean,
Well, the graph shows that there's a steady increase from 2007 to 2016.
I just thought of something I want to talk about.
Well, here I can play the video, but I mean,
I don't know if there was something else in the video that you wanted to touch on, or if it was just really that, because that was a great point. But I wanted to touch on liberty versus freedom, because I think Carl and I.
Well, let's continue this video.
Yeah, okay.
We've got like 3 minutes. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, let's do it.
This economy, the middle class is better off. The rich are better off. Now, the rich that are willing to work hard, the middle class that are willing to work hard, and the poor that are willing to work hard. Some people might be worse off, but they're probably the people who are not willing to work and who enjoy getting government benefits. So they deserve to be worse off. Where you are on the scale is, why is that relevant to anybody? Why are you comparing yourself to other people? Why are you competing with your neighbor? You should be, again, living your life the best life that you can be. And look, life's not about money. What about the happiness inequality, right? That's what it's about. It's about being the happiest you can be. It's not about being the richest you can be. Now, some people, in order to be happy, are going to be rich. That's part of what drives them, and it's if you're in business, making a lot of money.
Can you
is really, really
pause it
important.
here?
What if you're a teacher? You know what? You're never going to be super rich if you're a teacher, but you can be a great.
I think
we're going to be stopping and starting,
Yeah.
so if you just want to leave the mouse.
I think this is interesting that he talks about happiness versus money. So I have some reservations about that argument I've had with myself even. I've had this conversation probably with you guys before too. Some form of your happiness is dependent on money. Now, do you need to be a multimillionaire to have all your happiness? No. But do you need to have the ability to go and take that vacation to Disneyland if that's what makes you happy? And so some form of it I do think relies on money, where I'd kind of disagree with him here. But I'm more happy, I guess, to play off his words, to the fact that he brought up happiness is the goal and not money. And I think that's true. And I think there is something that happens in a free or liberty-minded society that we find, you were kind of mentioning in a resource-based economy, people can focus on things that just make them happy, things that people can do, things that they're great at, things that get them excited.
Not
and
what
that's
they're better
interesting.
at.
I like that. So
But is that necessarily society's fault that the thing that pays more is, let's say, a coder versus like a painter?
Yeah, well, that's just what we've accepted. That's the storyline we've accepted.
Well, that's what the market has decided has more value.
And a lot of our markets are.
That's why an artist doesn't get paid
skewed.
shit, but a coder gets paid maybe.
In this system that I'm talking about, the difference between them is because money's not a thing, really. Money's not, the monetary value is not distinguishing the classes,
but
the
he's
social.
going further. I think he's thinking way further.
thinking
Well, no, you are, but I guess at the end of the day, like
I'm trying not
in
to
this
think
current
that
system,
far.
that makes total sense.
well,
Yes. Okay.
Let me finish. I guess at the end of the day, what makes I might not find art and value, and because you maybe do, but you decided not to do that for whatever reasons. That's on you. That's not on me to say, oh no, we need to value art more. I don't.
That's why I would go into a community that does value art. I'd
Travis
be part
has
of that
something to say.
society.
I just
Go to Sweden, I guess. No, I'm just kidding.
No, just
I don't know.
I just think that when we're talking about like values of certain roles in society, like it's hard to say that a painter has the same unilateral benefits to society that a coder or like somebody that builds houses does.
it's
Like,
subjective.
Well, it's completely subjective, but I think the point
I see what you're saying.
I guess the point that he's trying to make is that it is subjective, but ultimately the market's deciding.
What is the market?
The market is the opinions of the average person, the opinions of the majority of the people.
So that's where I'm saying, where he mentioned as well. This is
I think
my
you've gone way
thoughts
too
are
far.
my thoughts are way down the line in a society that's not anywhere near.
Yeah, he's
those
thinking way
ideals.
too far down the line.
I'm
think
thinking
I'm
more
trying to
of
think
like
reasonable,
automation would allow you to not worry about this monetary idea where you have to pay to live your life.
Yeah, see, I don't think so, because I think what's going to happen, and I mean, you can just see this throughout history, world history, from the dawn of mankind, is that as technology increases, we find other things to do. We find, and that like I don't necessarily see like, oh, AI is going to happen, so all the jobs are going to go away, and then we'll just have all this time to just ride jet skis all day.
That would be dope as hell.
I mean, jet skis are fucking fun, but I'm just saying.
But I'm
just saying, like, we're
When was the
going to
last time-
find that next horizon of evolution, that next horizon of technological advancement.
Think about it this way: when was the last time humanity ever had something else think for it?
Never.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying, like, these ideas are not set in stone. These are ideas that they're kind of like science fiction. They kind of like precepts before, like precedences before what actually could happen. They're all could happens. They're ideals. They're ideals.
I don't know. I guess, yes, we've never had an AI technology before, but I'm just looking at it from a holistic perspective of we have seen technological advancements before. Yes, of course we haven't seen this one, but we haven't also discovered the one after that.
My whole point of bringing this up is because I just want to get people to think about the future, but not forget about what's going on now and the past. Learn from all of that, and we can start talking about that more. Science fiction does that. That's why I love science fiction, because it talks about those things.
Yeah, I guess my overall point is, if you decided to be a starving artist, cool. That's your prerogative. Don't be upset that I chose coding and you're unhappy about that.
No.
Yep. All right.
No.
Let's see what's left.
Be a teacher and be as happy as a billionaire. So it's about happiness.
I'm just kidding.
The whole issue of income inequality is driven by altruism and driven by envy. It's driven by altruism because the idea is, ooh, if I made a lot, I should feel guilty about it, and I should give it to somebody else because my moral responsibility is not to myself, it's to them. And if somebody else is not as rich as me, then they deserve it. And that drives envy, because if I'm not as rich as somebody else, I'm going, wait a minute, it's his moral responsibility to give me stuff, right? Because he's supposed to be altruistic. He's supposed to sacrifice. He's supposed to be selfless, and he's of course being selfish. So, where's my stuff? That drives envy. So, a society that cares about inequality of income.
I don't think necessarily envy leads to, okay, give me your stuff. Envy just says, I want to be there too. Like, what can I do to be there?
It's a
not necessarily
two sides of the coin.
Yeah,
kind of deal.
I guess in one way it plays out. It's more or less a driving factor. Like
It
for
could
me,
be.
like
It could be.
I would love to have $1 million one day. Cool. What am I going to do that?
But-
I'm not going to be like, give me 500,000. Give me 500,000.
But
I'm going to be like, I'm going to improve my skills, improve my situation to get $1 million.
This plays into my two principles that I was talking about. If you don't think about these two principles, then you may not have the same approach that you have. You're thinking like, well, I'm not going to initiate force because I don't have what he has. You're thinking, well, how the hell am I going to get it?
For the record, I
And
don't
how can I
necessarily
do it without
disagree
initiating
with the
force?
two rules. I think
No.
you just can't stop there. Like,
Well, no.
there's a lot of things that you have to consider well after just simply two
Yeah,
rules.
but I'm just talking about the principle of basics of what freedom is founded off of. And, this
And
is
I
it.
agree.
And
You-
you need these, or
I
you can't
gotcha.
have freedom, right? And so, like, I think that what he's saying is great, but I agree that envy does create that. If you're not thinking about the principles of initiating force, you fall into that socialistic mindset. Like, no, yours is ours, and that's a problem.
Hungry?
Somebody's stomach. Let's see what's left.
If a sick society is a society driven by altruism and envy, it is
True that.
exactly the kind of society we want to replace with a society of rational, self-interested individuals who care about making the most out of their own lives and don't worry about what their neighbor, how well their neighbor is doing. Indeed, they celebrate when their neighbor does well. They celebrate when somebody becomes a billionaire.
This is great.
That poses a really good philosophical question I've had, and actually kind of put some thought into. Do you think true altruism exists, and can it?
Like,
I think no.
what do you mean by true altruism?
Pure altruism, meaning I did it,
Never-
I do something for the benefit of something and got nothing out of it. Zero.
Like the world functions that way, is what you're saying? Or
No. Like, philosophically, do you believe that true altruism can exist?
If you're religious, you'd say Jesus Christ, but
no.
No?
No. I
No, I don't.
I don't think
I don't-
so either.
I don't believe that's such a pure.
I mean, no
Ideal.
matter what, you're doing something for somebody to help you in some way. Like,
It's
and
always
it
a
may not be
selfish
for a
aspect.
money. It may not be for a money thing. It may, but it may be for like
Like,
recognition.
I donated
It may be
that meal to that homeless person because it made me feel good. Like I
Yeah,
did it
like,
because it
But I don't see
felt
there's
good.
anything wrong
That's
with
not.
that.
Absolutely.
I'm not.
no,
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying fundamentally, true pure altruism it doesn't exist and it can't exist.
Yeah, no, I don't think it can because like what you just said, even just the fact that it made you happy, you did it because it was something you wanted to do to make yourself happy. Then you didn't do it for no purpose.
Well,
You
based
just did it.
on what we've been
As a
talking
value.
about, I mean, the principles that we've been talking about are purely self anyways.
Yeah.
It's self-sufficiency anyway. So this to say that you believe in pure altruism or to have that idea with our principles that we were talking about, that would be hypocritical. Yeah.
Which is why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Salivate when Steve Jobs and Bill Gates become gazillionaires. Because the fact is you can't become a gazillionaire without offering people a product, a service that they're willing to pay for. The way you become super rich is by making my life better. I'm better off with Steve Jobs, I'm better off with Bill Gates. So I am happy for them that they're super rich. I don't envy them. That's the kind of society we would have if we were advocates of rational self-interest. And to understand what that means from an economic perspective, from a moral perspective, I encourage you to read Ayn Rand and also to read Free Market Revolution, my book with Don Watkins, which really goes into this in greater detail.
Yeah, overall, I agree with that last sentiment about like Steve Jobs and whatnot, that he was important and whatnot. But
I'm envious of Steve Jobs.
At the same
I'm
time-
envious of the success. I want to have success.
at the same time, I always see there's a black to that white, though. Of course, we do see the I guess the I can't think of the word, the push into this technological era, which has completely changed the way we have lived, into a place where we become complacent, become convenience oriented, where it's like the iPhone has shifted our consciousness to convenience completely. From hard work can be thrown into that bucket of just, forget about hard work, forget about willpower and all that. It's just kind of like I can see how great it is. I'd say it's about 80% great, and then that 20% still lingers there. It's not perfect.
I mean, it also just comes down to how you
Yeah,
decide you're
individual.
going to do it. Like, for example, like if I'm going to spend 24 hours of my life on Facebook all day, every day, doing nothing but just watching cat videos, like, okay, that's useless, right? I would say society would say that's useless. But if I dedicate, let's say, my life to running a successful YouTube channel, or let's say a successful Facebook channel, whatever it may be, like that's where it can be used for good.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'd say that's the majority of what people has created, but it also has created that class of lackadaisical, just this is my life. I rely on this, where people have lost their self-reliance on, on their own intuitions, their own thought processes, and they rely on these machines to do everything in their lives. And I just see that as a problem. But
One final question I have for you guys. How do you see, in your particular philosophies of freedom, I guess, how would you see globalism fitting or not fitting into that? And let me define what I mean by globalism. It's just simply viewing the world as not necessarily a single community, but my actions in this country affecting the outcomes or actions in someone else's country. Like, communicating with other people, spreading ideas in that way, but like more in the globalist type way, where it's, borders down, we're all humanity, etc.
I mean, that's a big freaking
You too?
question. But
it is, and here you are. Here it is.
My short answer would be is if everyone embrace these ideas of freedom and philosophy of being in a liberty-minded society, then yeah, cool, great. Like it might work, but I don't see that happening everywhere in the world. At least for hundreds of years, there's still majorly far behind societies, and I just made up a word, but there are really. I don't think that, and right now that's where like recently a lot of my mind has changed on borders. Is as a libertarian, I very against the idea of the borders, but as someone who wants to protect the ideas of freedom and liberty, I also don't want a bunch of people coming in that don't agree with those philosophies and ruining that kind of mentality. So I don't know. I wish that could be possible, but I don't think it will be.
That's a sticky situation. Travis, you want to go?
It's a complicated question, and I know it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to answer, but I agree with Alex in the fact that there are certain sections of the world that just need to catch up. Culturally, just their societies just can't comprehend like the same things we've had for decades. Like as far as like different classes' rights, like women's rights in certain countries, like just certain concepts that are just like we've lived with for 100, 200 years, and they are just now being exposed to.
Yeah, so Enlightenment ideals, pretty
exactly.
much. Yeah.
I lied. I have one last question.
Okay.
Out of all of the systems, the plethora of through humanity, and all the other possibilities that may have not even been tried, do you think obviously you guys both, I wouldn't say, I'm not going to necessarily not include myself into that, but we sort of have this idea of, okay, this is the system we think is best and what works. Do you think there's any other system that's not that one that you kind of like more than the other? Maybe could be a close second place?
Well, the one I've been talking about sort of offhand is based on one called the Venus Project. This is like, so you take our current systems now and you take like the one like the anarcho-capitalist where it's money is still involved and you still have governments and whatnot. This is completely outside of all economic systems. Like this guy, so I talked to a guy that had actually met the guy who started this whole project. It's called the Venus Project, and it was his life work. But he said that in the current system that we live in right now, in the current technological era we live in right now, everybody on the planet could be fed. Everybody on the planet would have Maslow's basic needs of necessities on the whole pyramid. We could feed the entire planet, and we could do it based on automation and resources. So we'd have a resource-based economy where we integrate the entire world into like a resource grid where everybody can have what they need and not fight over it. So it'd not be what you're best at, like I said earlier. It's what you're it's not what you're better at than someone else. It's what you as an individual are the best at doing. So for example,
can you clarify, because it kind of sounds like a socialism, like communism. Yeah.
So the only difference, so it does sound like that, but the only difference is that there's no real power structure. There's no real force behind anything. You could be the laziest son of a bitch you want to be. You could just say, I don't feel like doing anything, and that's my life. But see, automation and the resources, the abundance of resources is the delineation between the difference rather between communism and socialism and this system, because we have all the resources widely available to everybody.
Even though the resources may be there, do you not think it's logical to say, like, okay, well, what makes me happy is maybe working a 9 to 5, or maybe
that would be available.
Hold on, but like, there would be some level of difference of effort, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that some people might say, like, oh, this person's not putting in any effort and they're receiving all the same stuff I am, but this person's putting in a lot more effort to contribute to society?
Let me add this.
That's why I'm asking.
Let me add this real quick. So this is such a system so far down the line, it would have to have a whole ultra shift of consciousness and thought processes.
I have a better answer to explain exactly that.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, that's true, but the thing is it doesn't negatively impact you that person is not doing anything.
Right.
So in this system, and I've read through it, I think it's really interesting, and I suggest everyone go read the Venus Project. I mean, it would be great if we could all start to kind of think more into the future like this. It sounds fantastic, but I am not there yet. I think we
have a lot of immediate questions.
Yeah, it is really deep, and like, I mean, I would read through their website. It's got a ton of stuff on there, and I've watched a bunch of videos on it.
Course.
Like my bigger question is like, what's the foundational motivation to do anything?
I don't know. I have a problem with what
where does
freedom to do that?
Yeah, but as a society, if I could just sit around and do the bare minimum or do whatever level of participation I want to, and I get the same benefits, like. Do you think there would still be people that would be wanting to invent iPhones?
Yes, and I don't know. Be promoted. It'd be completely promoted. Those people would be there.
I don't know.
You would have the resources to do it because you're not stuck to a 9 to 5 job slaving over
What-
someone else's debt.
What benefit would I get out of it? Because right now,
Whatever
like
you want it to
but
be.
like what right now the benefit I get out of it is, well, I mean,
So-
Steve Jobs is a multimillionaire.
Some interesting concepts I've seen out of it is that everyone, it's really a mind shift, like Carl was saying, into the idea of bettering society. And what you're doing is to try and
It's
make
utopia.
everybody's day better in some way, and it doesn't affect you or anybody else to make it better. Like, it's just a thing that you can do. And
I would
so,
definitely
like,
chalk this up to being a utopia.
it is
Absolutely.
I just
really,
I don't
Absolutely.
think that's
It's-
feasible within humanity.
it's not
'cause
my
there's-
area. I'm all for
because
NCAP.
because evolution and just biology in general is always going to be set up for variation.
though?
For variation.
Oh well, variation, yes, variation, but our consciousness is something we still have yet to map. So
Correct, but there is still wide variance in consciousness, and there always will be
That's why I
because
said-
it's a biological process.
that's why I said this could be something way down the line,
well, then
even.
if
But it's still
if
the principles
I
are so
would
nice. Hold on.
I would maybe
I didn't-
I would maybe argue that if we got to a point where the consciousness is sort of universal and or the same for everybody, I don't think we're humans at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's different. It's
But,
different.
but okay, hold
Can-
on, hold
can
on.
I-
hold on.
No,
I didn't
yeah,
get a chance to
yeah,
finish.
go man.
So the last time, so think about it this way. So say tomorrow, everything like the system that we're in, the capitalism system, just completely vanished, and we had this idea of we don't need money, we don't need your job, we can just have automation do this. Do you think the idea of building something greater for a greater good, a greater cause of humanity would be a unifying project?
I think some people might do that, but then I think there's also still gonna be a lot of people that are gonna be like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna sit on my couch all day
And then see,
and
that's
just
the whole
suck
point.
and just suck resources."
And that's not. And see,
But-
once we built that system, it
Yeah,
would
but
work
you- but
because
the
there's
ma-
no
the
resource
The
problem.
the major assumption there is
Yeah.
that resources will become infinite, and I don't see that as possible.
And see, that's why I'm saying, possibly down the line,
Travis has got a
we have-
smirk. He's got something.
have this like whole idea of this. We can harness more power from the sun. We do a terrible job of harnessing our solar resources.
Sure,
Terrible
but
job.
I think
Yeah.
we're just
Yeah, we're going
Yeah.
on and on and on.
Yeah,
and on.
Just
Blah,
a
blah, blah.
quick
Yeah,
funny
go ahead.
note. Have you guys ever seen the movie WALL-E?
yes.
Yeah.
That's like a
one of my
it's
favorite
a very
Disney
close.
movies.
It's like that society kind of sounds what you're
Not at all.
describing
Nah,
a little
absolutely
bit.
Not at all.
in that
Absolutely not at all.
well, a little bit, because in that society, automation is doing everything for
Yeah.
everybody.
But those people are lazy.
Well,
That's what
that's
we're
the-
trying to
yeah,
get
dude,
at.
that
yeah.
that
Hold
could
on,
be a
hold on.
possibility.
Oh no, it could be a possibility, but I would say that a major subsect of humanity would be against that.
But I don't know.
Major.
I think we could argue that all day.
Yes.
But I think what would be a better conversation to have is like what we were talking about is that there is a difference between like a liberty-minded society and true freedom.
Okay.
And I think we're more.
Okay.
Okay.
I think what
What is that?
Well, I think what Carl has been talking about pretty much this whole episode is a more true freedom of freedom of mind, freedom of money, freedom of whatever, freedom of literally the deepest level of freedom, being a true one with yourself in the world, and like that is a freedom that I don't know is fully achievable. That where I will win and fight with the liberty-minded society where we, like what you were trying to advocate for, like we still have to kind of have some kind of society. We interact with people, and we need to have some kind of and this is where libertarians will fight for like minarchist or like limited level of government, like and like a small level of government, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think there are more extremes that we can go personally in certain areas than some libertarians believe. But I will agree 99% of the way with a libertarian that we do have to have some kind of
There has to be some system.
agreements, right, between people. Now, what that is, we can maybe debate.
Of course.
But I think that society still just being liberty-minded and not true freedom, right? True freedom is almost terrifying to me.
That's the utopia.
That
like-
is.
like
It is terrifying. It's hard work.
I want to be free, but free as I can be while living in society.
By still having some rules.
I still
But
want
the rules are very minimum. Like,
but rules but rules nonetheless.
Yeah, like don't kill somebody.
Would y'all want to make a segue to automation and how it might infringe upon our freedoms a little bit?
Maybe we go into like a part 2 or something.
Okay. Oh, it's time. Okay, gotcha.
We're running up there.
Oh,
Maybe-
shoot, what time is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe
my Lord, yes.
Yeah, maybe
okay.
we go into a part 2. We'll go into some automation and the future of. Well, we've done some future episodes in the past, but I think we've got some new stuff we could talk about.
Wow.
Well, let's
That was a lot.
let's head to the quote of the week.
All right. The quote of the week is trying to make it as awkward as possible. So Thomas Jefferson will be our quote of the week. We all know who he is, right? Some founding father.
Enlighten me.
I think he.
I like it. So he says, "I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery." Very succinct, very poignant to today's.
Poignant.
No, I 100% agree with him. Dangerous freedom is 100% dangerous because freedom curtails or entails ideas. Ideas are dangerous. Actually, I'll just leave it at that then.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been a lot of what I've been trying to touch on this whole time is like everyone wants to try and tell someone else how to live, and I think that's a form of slavery, right? Like you have owned somebody's ability to do something, and it's just not the society I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of the society that is willing to like deal with the fact that, yeah, like this bakery isn't going to bake a cake for this gay couple. But yes, we could all agree that may be shitty of that bakery, but that just has to be a part of it. And I keep using that as a simple example, but that is the danger of freedom. But there is a huge, huge, huge benefit of freedom, of being able to make the choice and feeling comfortable in doing whatever you want, right?
I mean, I agree with pretty much most of what you guys just said. I guess my only concern or my only caveat would be if we break it down to its most fundamental, like what you guys have been talking about, the 2 rules, my immediate concern is scalability. That's where a lot of my discussion points were coming from is scalability.
Well,
like
that's where
what level would that system be scalable?
Well, that's why I say it starts as like a ripple in a pond. It starts basic, starts and then moves outward.
Yeah. So my argument is that it's not scalable, but
I'd say it takes time. It's a time factor. The time factor we're thinking in 10 years. No, I'm thinking maybe century even. I think
it just leads to more tribalism.
You think so?
It could.
Yeah.
It could. Because then you have Houston, Texas versus Dallas versus San Antonio versus Louisiana versus this versus and then all the little small towns in between to where like you have a guy that owns a country that's an island and he's the only one that lives there.
But I'm
not saying that's wrong, but I'm just saying like then I think you'll fraction out so much because like I think when you get down to it, the statistical likelihood of 2 people agreeing on every single rule on every single thing is pretty much slim to none.
Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Damn it.
So if by that definition, then they would therefore form different societies. So then every person would have their own sort of version of their society.
I got it. So I would say that I would disagree with that is because if these ideas are universal truths, then like most archetypes, they will be like duh to most people.
Well, no, I'm not. But I'm talking about like scalability from the sense of starting with the 2 rules and building the foundation from that and having more rules because I think we kind of agree that there has to be more than rules than just those 2. Like there will eventually be. Yeah. So, but once you get down to that, once you get to the adding more rules, that's when you'll start having the fractions. Because what if I don't agree with that one rule that you did out of the 500 that you have?
So,
cool, new society.
Well, an allusion to that or a metaphor for that would be kind of like the church where it says, here's the Bible, this is the one word, this is the law, and then they fractured into different sects. Would you say that's a comparable?
Yes. So here's those laws,
and that's also
the thing is like those 2 principles that I laid out aren't law. They're just the principles of freedom, right? And
well, whatever you want to call them, they're the rules of the society.
But every law has to abide those principles, right? And,
sure.
And so, like, if any law does not obey with those principles, then we wouldn't have that as a law.
But that's where.
And so, like,
but you got to think of
we've all
it in the
agreed to,
minds
like-
of lawyers, though. They're going to lawyer that it does involve, and one lawyer is going to say it doesn't. One won't say that it don't. Like,
I mean,
that's where it's going to be
I
complicated.
can see that. I can see the confusion with it.
It's
but
not
I think,
confusion.
no, I can see the I guess whatever it is,
potential
the
confusion.
Ambiguity.
yes, ambiguity in it. That's a better word. Thank you, Travis. But I do think it's possible.
No time frame.
I'd give it 50 to 100 years.
I'd give it like 1,000,000 to never.
There's
Only
being
because
optimistic.
It's
only
not that I.
because-
It's not that I disagree with the
Right.
foundational principles. It's that, and when you're talking about a society that's more than one person, and you talk about scalability, and I'm gonna say this falls within the 2 rules, and you say it doesn't. Like the disagreements, the fractions that might come from that. That's why I don't see a scalable, cohesive society getting much further than maybe 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, or whatever that level, the X level of people. That's where, like, I don't know, because you have to accept that if I'm going to live in a society, a group, a community, or something, there's going to be at least one thing that I disagree that
Well,
community's doing.
Here's where I can agree where you have that thought is like even in the Libertarian Party right now that there's no clear direction. Like everyone,
Gary
there's
Johnson's a fraud.
not even going there, but like the Libertarian Party can't even decide what the
Right.
hell like they all can agree on because there's so many different levels or extremes. Like I'm an ANCAP and there's a minarchist and
Very
there's
true.
like there are different levels of it, and I can see that. But I think if we could pull, I will take an inch where I can get an inch. You know what I mean? Like if we can get it closer and closer and closer and closer to that. Like, yes, I know my personal ideas of like
There
an
needs to be a
ANCAP
platform
society
ideals.
will take quite a long time, if ever, being able to be implemented. But I think if we can revert down to these more liberty-based ideas and then run parties like we do political parties currently, and if current office gets in, it's an ANCAP office, and they start trying to or start being able to remove things in 4 years, and we still keep our current system of our
Checks and balances.
checks and balances, right? Like we have
Or
a great
what we're supposed to
system,
have, rather.
right? But if done right, which is not what's happening, it's not being done right, and we've lost the idea of that, and we keep giving the government responsibility that it shouldn't have. And if we could work our way back down to a liberty-minded society,
So a renaissance of
then
ideas.
we can get closer and closer and closer to that. And I will take every inch of that I can get, and that's what I want to end with.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
agree with
mean,
that.
I agree.
I'm all in for that too.
All right. Well,
On that note,
that was crazy. That was a really good discussion.
no, that was a really really fruitful discussion. I think I had maybe some perspectives of scalability and all the other things that we talked about that I think when you think of it super simplistically, yeah, okay, maybe that system might work, but you got to scale it somehow. And
Right.
when you start involving the more people involved, that's where you get the many different angles and the
Dysfunction.
possibilities come in there. But no, I really enjoyed that conversation. Yeah, it was super fruitful.
Yeah.
well, guys, I think if you haven't already, you should go check out our website at bermudat.com.
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
yeah, you
There's a
can
lot
check.
of stuff there.
There's a lot of stuff there. We're actually kind of retooling it just a little bit. We're going to make it more YouTube-centric and stuff like that. Of course, we're all on major social media platforms. Most of you guys follow us on our Instagram at Bermuda Triangle Podcast, but you can check us out on Twitter at Bermuda T Podcast and Facebook.com/Bermuda Triangle Podcast. Stay involved with those conversations throughout the week. We know you love the memes. We're going to keep bringing them.
I just like that tree one.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Of course, you guys also know that the show is kind of extremely fan-funded. We are very small
Yeah.
for now. But yeah, if you guys do want to consider going over to bermudat.com/donate or to our Patreon page, which you can find links in various bios on social media pages, you can actually donate to the show if you'd like to. If you also just want to subscribe, that would be super helpful as, you know, we're trying to build this and get it monetized and all that jazz. So yeah, comment on the video, subscribe to the show, and also check out Blue Frog Party Club. partyfrog.com. I already did that ad. So, but yeah, go check them out. Get your party in a box. But yeah,
Guys, it has been another fantastic episode of the Bermuda Triangle Podcast, where interesting topics get lost in good conversation.
we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.
Peace.